Hi friends! Today I want to tell you the story of a girl who's the beating heart of one of anime's masterpieces, Samurai Champloo. A girl who had neither a sword nor fighting power, but with her hope and persistence kept two of the most dangerous samurai together. Her name is Fuu Kasumi. Stay with me until the end of this video because we're going to hear Fuu's adventurous life like a long story, like an old tale, from her simple days in a tea house to her dangerous journey to find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. Get ready, because this story is going to take you into a world of music, swords, the dream of a teenage girl. A small tea house tucked into a noisy street, the place where the smell of freshly brewed tea mixed with the sound of coins and customers' whispers, was the temporary home of a girl who still didn't quite know what her heart was looking for. Her name was Fuu Kasumi, a 15-year-old girl, energetic and a bit clumsy, with eyes that were always sparkling, as if she constantly found something new to discover in the world. She carried dishes, smiled at people, and tried to soften everyday chaos with jokes and optimism. But deep in her heart, an old secret pulsed like a sunflower seed under warm soil. The samurai who smells of sunflowers. A vague clue, a blurred image from childhood, and a man's name, Fuu Kasumi. A father who once was, then disappeared, and turned into a legend in his daughter's mind. The day everything changed began not heroically or poetically. It began with a fight, the kind that starts with a small excuse and ends in destruction. Fuu suddenly found herself caught between two storms. Mugen, a wild, ruleless swordsman who swung his blade like a fast dance, and Jin, a silent ronin whose sword cut fate quietly, like a line of calligraphy. The two, without realizing it, sent the tea house tables and the town's order flying. In the end, they both landed at the gallows, and everything seemed about to end with death, if not for Fuu. The girl, with strange courage, hatched a plan, lit a small firework, and pushed death one step back. Then she took a coin from her pocket, forcing destiny into a game, and asked the two swordsmen, before they fought again, to accompany her on an unknown journey. A journey to find that sunflower samurai. And the small metal disc, as if it knew her heart's secret, landed on the side Fuu wanted. Years later, she confessed that first coin toss, honestly, was a bit of a trick. Maybe a necessary trick to start the three-person adventure that would change all their lives. Once on the road, every mile spawned new stories. Fuu, who had no sword and knew no martial arts, had another weapon: persistent hope. She read maps, pieced together clues, and every time Mugen and Jin were about to fight again, she patched things up with a funny remark or a serious look. In dusty towns and riverside villages, they met people who each held a piece of the puzzle. Fuu sometimes posed for woodblock prints, sometimes fell into debt trouble, sometimes searched crowded markets for a scent that only had meaning in her memory. And every time her hope ran low, an image from childhood bloomed before her eyes of a man walking away through a sunflower field and a little girl reaching out her hand. But the journey wasn't just about Fuu. She unavoidably became a mirror for us to see the pasts of her companions. Mugen's past lay in the Ryukyu Islands, where with the opportunist Mukuro and the mysterious Koza, he tangled with bad luck, betrayal, and near death. Once they dragged Mugen to the brink of death, threw him into the water's depths, and yet somehow his ruleless toughness brought him back to the surface. Fuu, in those dark nights, realized that inside this rough man was something that clung to survival and refused to give up. That's where she learned everyone has a wound hidden behind laughter or silence. Jin wasn't without scars either. He had been a student at a school that drilled respect, order, and silence like sacred text. He carried a complicated past with his master and unspoken words that walked like a shadow beside him. Fuu, with her sharp girlish eyes, sometimes laughed at their stiff masculine codes, sometimes, with a simple line, lightened the weight of their secrets. Maybe if she hadn't been there, Mugen and Jin would never have learned to swap their silence for friendship. Maybe if she hadn't been there, their path would have split much sooner. The journey went on, and the world played its own jokes. One day, they found themselves in a strange game, more like baseball than swordplay foreigners from across the sea, bats and balls and rules that didn't fit old Japan, but in the mixed-up world of Champloo, somehow all coexisted. Another day, they went into the woods, hunting mushrooms, and the tale slid into 1,001 colors of fantasy. But amid all this laughter, the main knot never loosened. Fuu had to find that samurai, not for legend, but for her own heart. And every clue they found, every old man who spoke of the Shimabara rebellion and the fate of Christian samurai, sharpened the picture of her father. A man who had fought for an uncommon faith, lost, and now wandered the world. Near the end of the road, a woman appeared who made fate more tangled. Sarah, a blind musician with a staff and a voice like breeze over water. She walked with the three for a short while and told Fuu she had a son far away. She asked one of the men to come with her to get the child back. Fuu, in an unprecedented act of generosity, allowed Jin to leave her side, so Sarah wouldn't be alone, a decision that shook the group's three-part heart. But slowly it became clear Sarah wasn't only a musician, she was an agent sent by the shogunate to eliminate the two swordsmen. In a bitter fight, Sarah was killed, and Fuu, with tears hotter than any quarrel, learned that even kindness has limits when betrayal and blood are involved. That day, the girl accepted that the world isn't always as simple as her innocent gaze. With every step forward, the shadow of those who also hunted the sunflower samurai grew heavier. In dreams and memories, sometimes a man with a cold look appeared in the sunflower field, saying, "Sunflowers have no smell," and walking away. His face, as some later said, resembled a high-ranking swordsman of the government. Fate had winked since her childhood that the road wouldn't be easy, but Fuu didn't back down. The coin she'd tossed that first day was no longer needed. Her friends stayed by her not because of a bet, but because of a bond the road had forged. At last, the tides carried them westward, toward the area near Nagasaki called Ikitsuki. Fuu softly asked passers-by her father's name. Some were scared, some turned away, and one or two, hiding their shame, gave her the directions to an old house in the north of the village. The worn wooden door opened, and time, like an old curtain, was pulled aside. Her father was there. Not as heroic as she'd imagined, not as legendary as the path had promised. A sick man, a tired man, a man whose wars had been smoked away by the years. At first, Fuu thought she should shout, ask him why he left, why he abandoned her and her mother. But instead of yelling, she just sat down. They talked not much, but enough. She learned her father had drawn his sword in the Shimabara rebellion, had become Christian, had fled to keep his shadow off his daughter's life. He thought that by staying away, he was keeping danger away. What a sweet mistake. The danger never left, but the heart that had been left behind had been chasing him all this time. There wasn't enough time to tell the stories of all those years. Others were coming who wanted this story not to end at all. Assassins from the government sent to snuff out the last embers of the old rebellion. In the chaos that hit the shore at dusk, each went to a separate battle. Mugen fought a wave of killers, Jin faced a feared warrior from the shogunate's lists, and Fuu, for a few short moments, sat beside a father whose breath had become a rasp. One of the killers arrived and finished, with one impatient strike, what illness was slowly taking. Fuu held her father's hand, not to keep him, but to send him off. Sometimes, when an ending is inevitable, it needs a quiet acceptance. After that, Mugen and Jin, the two men who from the first day were supposed to fight each other, finally stood face to face. But as the blades clashed, their friendship rose between the strikes. In the end of an exhausting duel, their swords cracked, fatigue filled their faces, and what should have been blood turned into a faint smile. Fuu returned to the shore, wiped her tears, and looked at the setting sun. That day, the girl finally confessed the secret she'd kept for so long. That first coin, actually, it hadn't landed the way she'd announced. But if it hadn't been for that little trick, would the three of them, with all these memories and scars and friendship, be standing there together now? Probably not. And Mugen and Jin, with their trademark grumbles, accepted her confession because by then, they had realized this girl's heart was a compass that didn't mislead. When morning came, the breeze crossed the water and carried their shared story away. They set off in 3 different directions. None promised to return, none said they'd never meet again. The world is big and the road's endless. That's enough for hope. Fuu, lighter than ever, walked on. Something inside her had been replaced. That old emptiness filled with the question, where is he? Why did he leave? Was now filled with a calm experience with knowing. She had seen her father, understood his pain, and accepted his death. From now on, the Sunflower Samurai wasn't a legend to chase, it was a memory to keep. But Fuu's story isn't summed up only by this ending. On this journey, she learned the meaning of being strong without a blade. Sometimes courage means standing between 2 wounded men and not letting their pride kill them. Sometimes it means trusting a stranger woman and after her betrayal, still staying human, sometimes it means going beyond simple judgment and forgiving yourself, the other, even the past. In her own simple way, Fuu understood that growing up doesn't happen all at once with some grand ceremony. It's gradual, like a sunflower slowly rising each morning without us even noticing. If you asked her whether that man really smelled of sunflowers, she might smile and say, "Sunflowers have no smell, or at least not a smell we know." Its scent is a metaphor for warmth, for the light that shines from behind and lights your way without heating your face. Her father was such a light. His presence, even when absent, gave direction to her life. And when she found him again, though briefly, she accepted that direction with certainty. Fuu realized she could walk on her own, decide for herself, create small peace between two swordsmen, and a big friendship among three hearts. After that, if she ever reached a tea house again and picked up a tray, she wasn't the helpless girl from the first day anymore. Maybe she was still a bit clumsy, maybe she still fixed trouble with a cute look, but now she knew how to pass through chaos. If one day she tells her story to a child, she'll probably start with that coin, with the toss that teased fate and began the most serious journey of her life. And she'll tell that child, sometimes to start, you have to play a little trick, not on the world, on your own fear. And if you ask her for one last image of the journey, she'll probably show you an endless field, sunflowers turned toward the sun, stems whispering to the wind, and a narrow path between them leading to the horizon. She'll say, "This was our road." A road that began with two strangers and ended with two friends. A road on which she learned that a heart searching for the smell of sunflowers is really searching for something with a simple name: home. A home that isn't always in one place. Sometimes it's found beside two companions, sometimes in the arms of a sick father, sometimes inside yourself when you accept the past and forgive. And Fuu, the tea house girl, at the end of the journey realized she'd been chasing the scent of something that had quietly sprouted in her own heart from the start. And that was the story of Fuu Kasumi, the girl who proved you don't need a sword to be a hero, you just need to hold on to your hope and connect the hearts around you. A journey that began with a fake coin toss turned into a story about friendship, forgiveness, and finding the home that's always been within us. If you liked this story, be sure to hit like and in the comments tell me, if you were in Fuu's place, would you dare travel with two dangerous samurai? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories from the world of anime so you won't miss the next adventures.